There are several, I think, themes and issues and questions that we can group together. One of the ones we already talked about is the quantity versus quality, and much more I think was very nicely illustrated by the range and breadth of speakers and their experience, but also the context within which they were doing evaluation, and then was also taken over by all the groups. It's really important why you do it, what you're evaluating, and then that should define also your criteria and what you want to get out of it. But that allows for enormous variety. And although it's very important to try to be a bit more systematic and up to date with the latest methodologies that the group over there said, and also combine, definitely, I think was very clear there's no single golden methodology. It's very important to combine different resources. It's also very important to allow for the richness of the experience and the difficulty of capturing things like learning, engagement with the arts, with much more large-scale data analysis of how people retrieve things when we're talking about very large databases, and that allows for an awful lot of space in between. It's also very important, we talked about, and you all raised the differences in resources and the different kind of cultural heritage institutions. It was also interesting for some of you who haven't done it at all, but would like to use the end results compared to others who are doing it in great depth, and with some of the frustrations of the methods, that getting together in places like this and also not having the walls and the boundaries between the cultural institutions themselves, whether it's a library or a museum. We didn't have that much from archives, for example, today, but also between academia and cultural heritage. It's an important step of maybe overcoming some of those difficulties of the sharing and holding hands rather than reinventing the wheel, reusing data. And I'm not so sure the book for dummies is the answer. But definitely it's worth thinking a little bit about, should maybe the outcome of some of this, maybe the network could be guidelines maybe that take into account the different needs of the sector. Also, there is existing research, but it seems to need a little bit of distilling and combining, synthesizing, maybe translating it into something that's more useful and applicable. Maybe also about different tools and a toolkit, but also with all of these things, what was interesting for me is everybody was saying they need to be very aware of the context, reflexive and thoughtful about how you do it. It was definitely, I think the answer is none of these things are a golden solution of this is the perfect way to do it. And it also requires quite a lot of understanding, both the depth and the breadth. I think we come back to that. So it's also getting the institutional backing. Before you even develop your brilliant cultural digital resource, you also need to kind of work with the others in the team higher up, but also widely with colleagues, with and stakeholders anyway, and different users about what are you trying to get out of it, because it's some of those wider questions that affect how you'll do the evaluation. I think almost all the groups, together with the speakers, confirmed the need to make it a life cycle and way of working practice within both cultural heritage but also researchers, because I think that's the other interesting thing with evaluation, and the digital in general, the boundaries are blurring between that. It's not that common, you just give it to the researcher outside, you are the digital institution kind of developing the resource. It's much more often about teamwork, and I think it's teamwork in evaluation work as well for it to work effectively, for combining all these different methods. And also it was very interesting to see that the next one being moving from impact to value, it was highlighted in different ways by your discussions. We haven't finalized the speakers for that, so any great ideas about who would be really thought-provoking and useful, we're really open to it. Keep the communication. The next one is almost certainly 16th of June, so if you can try to put it already in your calendar, we'll follow up with from the blog and different notes and things. Thank you all so much for today. It was really useful and really interesting. I think quite inspiring to hear kind of the buzz of the conversation. Don't forget your evaluation forms. And I think I'd like to invite you to all kind of give a round of applause for all our speakers, but all of you who contributed.